A struggling rancher buys the freedom of a girl labeled too wild for any man, never knowing she was born to ride beside him. Asterisk, this is a powerful Wild West story of courage, freedom, and unexpected love. Asterisk, like, share, and subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, Caleb Hart had never imagined his life shrinking to numbers scratched in a banker's ledger. His Montana ranch, inherited from his father, had once stretched green and proud beneath the open sky. Now drought had burned the grass to dust, cattle grew thin, and every sunrise brought another reminder that he was losing ground. He worked from before dawn until stars filled the sky, yet it was never enough. The nearby townsfolk whispered that Caleb was cursed with bad luck. He didn't argue. Luck had nothing to do with it anymore, only survival did. Asterisk, the night he rode into town for the auction. Caleb wasn't looking for anything but cheap supplies. The event was meant to settle debts, livestock, tools, and contracts sold off to the highest bidder. He stood at the edge of the crowd, hat pulled low, listening without interest until the tone changed. The auctioneer's voice sharpened and laughter rippled through the men gathered there. That was when Caleb saw her. She stood on the platform with her chin lifted, wrists bruised but eyes burning, as if daring anyone to step closer. Asterisk, they called her too wild to serve, too wild to marry, too wild to be trusted around men or money. The words hit Caleb harder than he expected. He saw how the crowd reacted, curious, mocking, hungry in the wrong way. The young woman didn't look frightened, but she looked trapped, like a Mustang penned behind rotten boards. Caleb felt something twist in his chest. He knew what it meant to be cornered by forces stronger than you. The bidding stayed low. No one wanted trouble. Before he could talk himself out of it, Caleb raised his hand. Asterisk, the gavel fell quickly. Silence followed. Caleb paid for the contract with money he couldn't afford to lose, his palms sweating as he signed the papers. When he approached the platform, the woman studied him with open suspicion. Up close, she looked no older than her early 20s, face weathered by sun and hardship rather than age. I didn't buy you, Caleb said quietly, careful with every word. I bought your freedom. You can walk away now if you want. That only confused her more. After a long moment, she introduced herself as Mara and agreed to ride with him for now. Asterisk, they left town before dawn, riding side by side in wary silence. Caleb noticed how naturally Mara sat her horse, balanced and fearless, guiding the animal with subtle shifts rather than force. She handled the reins like someone born to the saddle. When a rattlesnake crossed their path, she didn't flinch, just nudged her horse around it. Caleb had worked with cowboys all his life, but he had never seen anyone ride quite like her. Still, he kept his distance, unsure how to speak without offending or promising something he couldn't give. Asterisk. The ranch came into view by late afternoon, a small house, leaning barn, and acres of tired land stretching into the horizon. Mara took it all in without comment. Caleb explained the rules: simply fair work, fair pay, and freedom to leave whenever she chose. No ownership, no chains. That night she ate quietly at the table, exhaustion finally softening her guarded posture. Caleb watched her, hands scarred, steady, capable. Whatever others had called her, she was no helpless girl. She was someone shaped by hard roads and harder lessons. Asterisk, morning arrived with unforgiving clarity. Caleb expected Mara to hesitate, maybe complain about the labor. Instead, she was already outside when he stepped out, saddling a restless horse he had never been able to tame. Before he could stop her, she mounted. The horse bucked once, twice, then settled, responding to her calm control. Caleb stood frozen, equal parts amazed and alarmed. By the time she rode back, dust swirling behind her, the horse moved like it had known her for years. Mara said nothing, but her eyes shone with quiet pride. Asterisk, days passed, each one revealing more of her skill. She repaired fences, tracked missing cattle, and handled storms with the same steady resolve she brought to everything else. Caleb found himself relying on her without meaning to. The ranch, though still struggling, felt less heavy. At night, when the wind howled across the plains, he wondered who Mara had been before the labels, before the cage. He never asked. Some stories weren't meant to be forced open. By the end of the first week, Caleb realized something had changed, not just the ranch but himself. For the first time in months, he slept without dreaming of foreclosure notices and empty fields. He didn't know what the future held, only that fate had placed a wild rider on his broken land. And though neither of them understood it yet, that meeting at the auction had set both their lives on a new, uncharted trail. The second week on the ranch brought trouble on the wind. Dark clouds rolled low over the plains, promising rain but delivering only harsh storms that tore at the land. Caleb and Mara worked side by side, moving cattle and securing what little feed remained. There was no need for many words between them. A glance, a nod, and they understood each other. Caleb noticed how Mara never waited to be told what to do. She anticipated problems before they appeared, as if the land itself spoke to her in a language she had always known. One afternoon, a group of riders appeared near the boundary fencemen from a neighboring ranch who had long wanted Caleb's land. They laughed openly when they saw Mara working the herd, mocking her presence. Caleb felt anger rise, but before he could react, Mara stepped forward, calm and unshaken. She met their stares without fear, her posture straight in the saddle. Something in her confidence unsettled the men, and after a few sharp words, they rode off, promising to return. That night, Caleb apologized for exposing her to danger. Mara surprised him by smiling faintly. She told him she had faced worse than threats and insults. What she wanted now was honest work and open land, nothing more. Her voice held no bitterness, only resolve. For the first time, Caleb spoke about his father, about inheriting the ranch and failing to keep it strong. Mara listened without interrupting, as if she understood the weight of legacy and loss. In that quiet exchange, trust settled between them like embers warming in the dark. Days later, the storm finally broke, flooding a dry ravine and scattering part of the herd. Without hesitation, Mara rode out alone into the driving rain. Caleb followed, fear knotting his chest as lightning split the sky. He found her guiding the cattle across dangerous ground, risking her life with every step. Together they worked until dawn, soaked, exhausted, but victorious. When the last cow was safe, Mara swayed in her saddle, nearly collapsing. Caleb caught her before she fell, holding her as if letting go would send her back into the storm forever. Recovery took days. During that time, Caleb realized how deeply Mara had become part of the ranch and his life. He brought her water, food, and sat nearby while she rested, the silence between them now comfortable. Mara admitted she had never stayed in one place so long without being told to move on. The ranch, broken as it was, felt like the first place that hadn't tried to tame or cage her. Caleb promised she would never be forced to leave. When the rival ranchers returned, they didn't come to threaten. They came to negotiate. Word had spread of the land improving, of cattle surviving, of a woman who rode like the wind itself. With Mara beside him, Caleb stood firm, refusing to sell. The men saw strength where they once saw weakness and rode away without argument. The ranch, once dismissed as dying, now demanded respect. Winter arrived early, laying the plains under a blanket of snow. One evening by the fire, Caleb finally spoke what had been growing in his heart. He told Mara he hadn't bought her to save himself, but she had saved him all the same. He offered her not ownership, not obligation, but partnership on the land and in life if she chose it. Mara looked into the flames for a long moment, then met his eyes. She said she had been called wild because she refused to walk behind anyone. But riding beside him felt right. Outside, the wind howled across the open land. But inside the small house, warmth settled in. Two lives once shaped by loss now faced the future together. The ranch was still fragile, the work never ending, but they were no longer alone. And in the vast, unforgiving West, that made all the difference.